So episode number 22 today is completely owned by Aaron Watson of Piper Creative, and a really cool dude that I've gotten to know over the past couple of years. And as I've been assembling our 50 stories here of tech in Pittsburgh with Comcast, I knew Aaron had to be someone we wanted to talk to because he's always up to something very cool. And people probably know him best for his Going Deep Summit, really growing big. And this year was like, oh, it was going to be massive. And then of course the whole COVID thing happens and the rescheduling and blah, we know it's all nuts. And we're going to get to that. But I'm excited to talk to Aaron today because I think he's one of these people in Pittsburgh that's just making a huge difference, across the ecosystem, whether you're in tech or not, whatever that is. He's kind of putting things together with marketing through Piper and then really trying to build community through the Going Deep Summit. So Aaron, thanks for hanging out with me today. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. And it looks like you're doing well despite all the craziness here on Zoom.
Yeah. I appreciate you having me on. And that word exactly, community, is the whole name of the game, whether that is the, listenership of an audience for a podcast, a YouTube channel, the attendees of an event. Community is both a strength of Pittsburgh and something that I'm very, very interested in developing and studying and understanding.
Absolutely. So let's start with your story real quick, just the background on Aaron Watson and like what got you to start, Piper. I'm always appreciate it when someone starts their own company because it takes a little balls to do that. Like, I would never start my own company. I'm not a risk taker like that. So what's your story and led you up to being like, no, I want to start my own thing and call it Piper Creative?
Yeah. So preceding Piper, I had been hosting a podcast, Going Deep with Aaron Watson, for about 3 years. And it was really apparent to me that through that work, I was starting to develop a differentiated skill set, but also, came to realize that having an audience, having a community built around a brand, a story, a movement, a set of beliefs, values, what have you, is a really, really powerful thing and is something that is underappreciated by most of the brands out there. So a lot of what, passes for some form of digital marketing today is paying some young person to post to like Twitter and Facebook for you occasionally. And that's like their like digital strategy. And taking that a step further to be, a trusted resource, a member of a pre-existing tribe or community through the lens of consistent content production. So for me, that means the weekly podcast that I produce, the Going Deep podcast, or the thrice weekly business news show that I do with my co-founder, Hannah, the Piper Rundown. But it becomes this ongoing conversation where you're providing value through some sort of consistent demonstration of your expertise. And in order for other brands, other companies to be able to do that, they need someone that understands the technical execution of that. So we work with different clients, technology companies, lawyers, accountants, all sorts of different firms, and they've got more experience than me, Jonathan, by like 10x. Like they've been in the weeds doing their thing so much more. I could never ever, we're working on one right now that's the nuances of a piece of HVAC equipment. It's like I'm never going to be able to talk to you about that precise piece of equipment to the length that they can, but they don't necessarily know how to convey that in a compelling 2, 3, 4 minute video narrative and do it in a cost-effective, efficient manner. So we get to plug in, be that creative narrative infrastructure for them so that they can continue to build their brand and end up growing a little bit faster.
It really seems like you're filling a niche here in Pittsburgh. I can't really think of any other firms that are like approaching it the way you're doing this. Cause I think, you can pay a ton of money for pretty deep storytelling and for people to put really glitzy, fancy, production values on things and make your videos just pristine. But if that video is not connecting to the community, then it's kind of worthless, right? And if it's something that if someone can't afford, then they're not going to do it. So it's not going to work. So the idea that you're able to bring something at a really good price point and then really get to understand how to plug that into the right community, to me, I think is pretty cool.
And there's another really important element of it, which is enough humility to look at it and say, we don't necessarily know which one's going to be the perfect, full contact on the ball, absolutely hit it out of the park. Let's get more at bats. Let's step up to the plate more times. And then we get to learn, okay, we tried, in one day we shot 10 videos and those 10 videos went up over the course of 2 months. And over the course of those 2 months, we saw that these 3 videos did well. Those 3 videos did absolutely terribly. And these 4 were, okay. That gives us real insight that we might have not otherwise had about our message, about what elements of our story are compelling. And by learning that, we now get to make better subsequent decisions every step along the way.
Absolutely. I mean, you're arming yourself with actual data from all these other videos that are working and not working, as opposed to you had just done one. Well, it kind of worked, but you don't know anything else other than that. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. And as you said before, so you're working with people at all different types of industries, which makes your job fun, because you're working with HVAC one day, a lawyer the next. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be able to think on my feet, and I'm very lucky that Hannah and the rest of the creatives on our team, they handle most of the technical execution in terms of lighting and miking and getting the right settings on the camera setup. Frankly, I'm like embarrassingly bad at that stuff. I actually had one of our summer interns say like, "So you started a company like this, and you don't even really know how to work the camera, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of
tell you what a gaffer does. So get out of my face."
it's kind of true. But what my role and the fun of my job is that there's all these different folks, and you know, one of the examples with the lawyer client was they're like, I think I only have like 2 or 3 stories. I was like, you've been in this industry for 30 years. If you're telling me you only have 3 stories, we need to have a much deeper conversation about what you've been doing for the last 30 years and how you've gotten this far. But getting to unpack and unroll that with people and play with the different pieces of their narrative. And then also just, you know, the basic blocking and tackling of the way that you structure a sentence, the way that you move from the passive to the active voice as you talk about what you do. These are some basic best practices of communications, of sales, but getting to help tailor that with the client means that I get to apply this skill set kind of horizontally across all these different verticals.
That's so awesome. So much fun. So what has changed for you during COVID? I mean, obviously our litany of Zoom meetings, but like, have any new business trends emerged from you? Are people approaching you because they want to do more video now? Like what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so folks are actually coming to us and they're saying to themselves, in some way, shape, or form, we had allocated to our budget that we would be doing events, and whether that was maybe not as grand events as you guys do over at the council, but if they're doing seminars or they do workshops or some sort of teaching vehicle, that's no longer viable. We have one person that we're working with right now. You know, they tend to go into schools for their seminars. Like, we don't even know if school's going to happen. If they are, they're definitely not letting more people into the school than otherwise necessary. Exactly. And so they're saying, well, you know, we'd set this money aside in our budget. We still want to generate demand and build brand. Let's try something new. And hey, you know, we've seen Aaron's podcast pop up here and there. Hey, we were looking for someone who can help us kind of produce this content in a way that's not going to absolutely break our back on a cost basis. And our ability to step up into that role, I think, is an important part of the Pittsburgh story, because Pittsburgh has to be better as storytellers in order to continue to grow. We have so much tech talent here. We have so many, you know, great organizations and community developers, and that story, both internally and externally, is going to be a really important part of the next chapter.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. I mean, it's just so important all the way around. And how do you see things moving forward? I mean, none of us can predict how long this is going to last, but I get concerned now because I see people, they're like, yeah, I want to do stuff, but then what's it going to be 6 months from now or a year from now when maybe people aren't going to allocate budgets the same way? How are you trying to prepare a little bit more for the future? Or are you just trying to ride the wave as you go here? What's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, we've spent, so when things really kind of froze and locked down in late March and into the middle of April, we took that time to look internally. And I was actually, you know, doing a little meeting with another agency owner here in Pittsburgh yesterday. And we were just talking about how it was a great opportunity to make sure our systems were in line, to make sure that our kind of internal processes were efficient and pointing in the right direction. And now personally, and at Piper, we're ready to look externally and take this message out to more people because it is of the moment. You know, Shopify's founder and CEO, Toby Lutke, said, we basically got 2030 early. I don't know if you've seen the different ramp ups and, you know, the adoption of e-commerce, the adoption of these kind of different digital trends. They've all been accelerated by, you know, 2, 5, 7, 10 years, depending on who you're talking to. And so we've been building Piper as a solution for the future. We weren't in any way, shape, or form, you know, living in the past. And I think a reasonable criticism for us was that we weren't completely living in the present. We were so like, imagine in 5 years, imagine in 7 years.
Right. Yeah.
And so now things have kind of caught up, and we just see, frankly, like our rallying cry for the year is focus and flex, because we want to focus on the things that we do really well, and we want to flex on people a little bit that we're pretty freaking good at what we do. We've kind of figured out what it is that we do well. And so the next steps forward are, maybe you're downsizing your office. Maybe, everyone's cutting costs in some way, shape, or form. And when that translates into people losing their jobs, it's an absolute tragedy. And there's a whole other conversation to be had there for what's going on in the job market. But at the operator level, at the marketing manager level, who now maybe is working with 2/3 of the budget and 2/3 of the team and still is, responsible for getting results. We know that people listen to podcasts. We know that people are searching on YouTube all of the time for answers to their questions, for brands and stories to engage with. And if you're not there, and if you're misallocating your budgets elsewhere, then that's really going to come back to bite you. And so in terms of a 6 to 12 month window, we're ready to execute on that. We've already executed on socially distanced shoots where all of our staff is masked up and distanced up, where the cameras are already set up, the mics are set up, and you, as the business owner, as the voice for the brand, walk to your spot. We've got the lights set up, you mic yourself, and we boogie. And that has worked. We've produced online courses for different brands. We've produced a number of different pieces of media in that format.
Who would have ever thought that, yeah, man, you got to keep the distance on the it's creating a whole new way of shooting video. Crazy.
Yeah. But, ultimately we're optimistic. My background's in sports. I won 2 national championships at the University of Pittsburgh for ultimate frisbee. And I've always been of the belief that, like, when the chips are down, it comes down to the people that want it more, that are ready to compete, that have, the mindset that they're just going to put the next foot in front of the other and get somewhere, as opposed to just standing still and twiddling our thumbs. And that's the mindset, that's the ethos that we've adopted at Piper. And I think that that's ultimately why we're going to emerge from this stronger than we were before.
I love your attitude on this, and I'm hoping anyone that's listening to this or watching this is getting a little juice, because it's like, yeah, exactly the attitude we should all be taking here. And I know you're taking that same attitude towards the Going Deep Summit, which is why I'm really pumped that you moved this ahead a year. Give it a chance to cool out a little bit around here and figure out what it means in a socially distanced environment to put on this event. So give our listeners a little just background around what the summit's all about, and talk about what we can expect in 2021, which is like actually closer than we think.
Yeah, it's crazy. Thankfully, 2020 is at least 50% over already. But this is the 3rd Going Deep Summit. It was supposed to be in March. Obviously, we had to postpone that. We kind of tentatively said, hey, maybe this summer. And then as you got more data in, we still have people struggling to wear masks. We still have a ton of people that are just frankly uncomfortable. I have friends who have like weddings later this year, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And so it just didn't seem like the prudent move. We pushed it off to 2021. We still have a fantastic lineup of speakers, including local tech CEO Jim Gibbs from Meter Feeder. We have a fantastic D2C marketer, Marco Mirandes. We have a writer, David Perel, Jasmine Cho, talking about her cultural heritage and kind of thinking in a more perspective. So there's a lot of topics there. And the idea of the day is it's designed to expand your mind, fill your heart, and grow your tribe. And we very intentionally set it up for a Saturday. We very intentionally start it the morning of a Saturday, because it kind of self-selects for a certain type of person. We're going to have less.
If they're taking their Saturday.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And you know who it is that you're going to be meeting if you show up there and if you buy that ticket. And, it's going to be a few less people than we otherwise would have planned to, because we're probably going to cap it from like a safety perspective in terms of how many people are there. But there's still going to be this amazing opportunity to commune together through the lens of trying to better yourself, trying to get access to a new idea, and trying to meet someone else who's also up to something interesting. So I have such a great time every single time I go to the summit, because there's so many cool people there, and I meet someone new. It's my event and I'm meeting new people there. So I can't even imagine for the other folks that get to show up, and whether they're listeners of the podcast or they just love those types of events in Pittsburgh. It's a really cool day that we get to share with one another. I can't wait for it to come back in April. And it's also the basis, just to kind of wrap everything up, for
Mm.
which we launched Piper. So the first summit was a month before we launched Piper, and we used everything that I had learned from audience building, community building on digital platforms to host the first one. We had more than 100 attendees. We sold tickets, sponsors, speakers, all that good stuff. And that was the basis of like, hey, I can actually drive a result, drive transactions in the real world in through the lens of these digital platforms. So I actually know what I'm talking about and can actually back it up, as opposed to the kind of risk that you see in the world of digital marketing, which is a lot of people calling themselves gurus, telling you this, that, and the other thing about how to do everything. And they don't have the practical, pragmatic, on the ground execution that gets results. And that's the other thing that everyone is, they're always worried about this, but particularly in these circumstances of COVID, you want something that's going to work. It's like, no one ever got fired for buying IBM. No one wants to make that risky decision right now that says, man, I've just submarined my career because I put all my eggs in this, terribly, basket full of holes. And the idea that when you work with Piper, we're still relatively young, we're still relatively unproven compared to the kind of 25-year-old companies out there, but at the same time, we are the agency in town with the biggest YouTube presence. We are the agency in town with the most podcast downloads. So if that's the direction that you want to go, you can't find a better partner than Piper.
Dig it, man. I dig it. This is such good stuff. And so April 2021.
April 17th, 2021, downtown Pittsburgh at the, blanking on the name of the building now. This is embarrassing. Oh, it's right downtown.
It's like
the TrueFit office.
Union Trust building, of course,
yep,
right?
The Union Trust building. Sorry.
The beautiful auditorium up on like the 18th floor where Frick had his own private show.
Yep, used to be Henry Frick's personal private theater. It is gorgeous. They've renovated. They put millions of dollars into the building, so it's going to be well worth it.
It should make for a great Saturday in April. That is for sure. And my key takeaways from you, Aaron, are focus and flex.
Focus and flex. That's the 2020 Piper rallying cry. Let's go.
And 100%. I think that is completely freaking cool. And I can't thank you enough for talking to me today. Like I said, you're one of these folks in Pittsburgh. I keep saying this is like my new tagline now. Is you're making Pittsburgh proud, dude. Simple as that, because we need more folks like you doing what you're doing, because that's what's making Pittsburgh a better place. We got a long way to go, that's for sure. But man, with women and men like you doing what you're doing, Pittsburgh's it's got itself a fighting chance, that's for sure. And I can't recommend people.
Well, I'm glad you're doing everything that you're doing here too, Jonathan.
We're trying, man. We are definitely trying our best. That is for sure. But we said we can't do it without having members like you and having folks like you in the community that are out there taking those risks and hopefully having a good time while they're getting their whole game on. So, Aaron, thanks again. And can't thank Comcast enough for making this happen with us, telling us our 50 stories. You, of course, are story number 22. And Aaron, you're the best, man. Be good.
Thanks.